So Sarah, you're number 2.
Okay, so I wanted to put Thor 2 just to make Renee mad.
Oh, you
But
guys are trying to like. What you guys want to get me mad? I hate you guys so much.
no, but I put the first Thor. I Thor is like my favorite out of the MCU. Like he's my man. And I love the first one. I origin stories tend to be more interesting to me just because there's just so much more meat to them. Like usually the origin stories I mean, of course it's how they come into being, and the sequel is usually like, look at this horrible thing I've made that I now have to destroy. Like they're always fighting some sort of evil they created themselves. So just the first Thor was just it's funny, and he's trying to figure out how to be human, so like the comedy ensues of him like trying to figure things out, and it was very fun.
So it is my I guess I've said it. It's my favorite Thor movie to date. I love Thor Ragnarok, but I'm like, we're talking about like there's story issues. And my favorite thing about Thor, the first Thor movie, is Jamie Alexander. I'm like, oh my God, Jamie! I've seen it before. I'm like, he kick my butt any day, Xena. Lady Sif. No, but it is to me my favorite. It is, and it's. I remember when it came out of the theaters, I'm like, that was very Shakespearean. That was very like not Macbethian, but it had that Shakespearean vibe kind of thing. And it was directed by Kenneth Branagh. I'm like, wait, what? Kenneth Branagh directed this? Okay. I mean the bad dude from Wild Wild West in a giant spider. It's a good movie. It's really fun. I didn't think I'd go like I was going because I'm a Marvel whore. I'm like, all right, I gotta go see this movie. But I'm like, I was surprised. I'm like, okay, it's more about Lady Sif. That's what I came out with out of Thor 1. But overall, it is. And they gave us Natalie Portman too. I'm like, oh, Natalie Portman's pretty cool. And then my favorite moment in that movie is
This drink, I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another.
he breaks the glass.
Yeah, I love Thor. And he's probably maybe Captain America is probably my favorite MCU character, but Thor's up there though. Like I've always liked Thor since the first movie. I thought the first one, and it's funny you were talking about Kenneth Branagh. Like I had this drama teacher in high school who just was, he was like absolutely like fixated with Shakespeare. He loved freaking Shakespeare, and like so he loved Kenneth Branagh. He would always tell us about Kenneth Branagh movies because Kenneth Branagh was like the only name out there like making random Shakespeare movies. And so like freaking, I mean I've seen a couple of them. Yeah, whatever. He makes Shakespeare movies. They're cool, whatever. Including Much Ado About Nothing. Three Brothers, as played by Keanu Reeves, Denzel Washington, and I forget the third guy. It doesn't matter, but they're brothers, and they don't even explain why they're different races. It's great.
Adopted?
What'd you say?
Adopted?
They never explain it. They never say. They're just brothers, and it's fine. You know what I mean? But yeah, whatever. Who cares? Anyways, Kenneth Branagh, this Shakespeare lover, comes and makes this Thor movie, and I mean, he does it proper. You know what I mean? You have these two worlds which shouldn't fit together, but they do. You know what I mean? You have this alien Shakespearean world, this science fiction, like early Middle Ages, like world, two things that really shouldn't fit together, but alien Shakespearean world, and then you take who's made in that and then send them to Earth, like contemporary Earth. You know what I mean? Like it's great. It's great. I love Fish Out of the Water Tales, and Chris Hemsworth just so happens to be a fantastic actor.
It is. Like I the first thing I saw Chris Hemsworth was Star Trek, the remake, but I'm like, oh, and I went down his whole. He was the best thing in the Ghostbusters remake. I'm like, not to clown on that crew and that cast, but he was the best thing in my opinion. I'm like, this is the funniest thing ever.
No, Kate McKinnon setting things on fire.
See, he was the best thing in that movie. That movie sucks, but he was the best thing. Did you see that movie?
I've seen that movie several times. I love that movie.
It's not a good movie.
It's going on the next list, man.
It doesn't go on the blooper reel. All right, so was that your number 2, Sarah?
That was my number 2.
All right, so my number 2. So first and foremost, like I'm a comic book fan, but first and foremost, I'm an X-Men fan. X-Men is what got me into it. X-Men is what I relate to the most. And this movie was the one that I teared up, I cried at this one scene. We'll get to, but that movie that made me like that I loved. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's why I love the X-Men. It's X-Men: Days of Future Past. And that moment when I cried, teared up, is when I cry a lot in movies. Is when Professor X's meet each other. I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. And we tell them, don't lose hope, stay on, like we'll get through this. That movie just broke my heart. I'm like, oh my god, I never thought I needed this. I never thought I wanted this, but I never knew I needed it. You know, I'm like, this is amazing. That scene broke my heart. I'm like, this is, and just you see the faces of them just kind of like dying, and then Professor X, James McAvoy, Professor X, like using drugs to stay normal. I'm like, oh, I see the reference to substance abuse and being normal. Just so many layers. Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine, Kelsey Grammer back as Beast because I love Frazier. But that to me is one of the best X-Men movies in the past decade. Yes, Frack you first class. But that's how I feel. The only thing I have issues with is that Mystique. I'm like, I don't know if Mystique would have done that. I don't know if Mystique was always in the comics. She's always like, look for you after yourself. But she did do that. But there was a time when I'm like, I don't think Mystique would do that. Like when she would help Wolverine and stuff like, I don't know if she would do that. But overall, that's my favorite X-Men movie my second favorite X-Men movie of the decade. Thoughts? Moving on.
Yeah, you said Days of Future Past, right?
Yes,
yeah.
I did.
I like that movie. Yeah, I loved it when it came out. I have a follow-up question for you too, but as far as X-Men: Days of Future Past, I like as you can tell on my list, I like First Class. I give First Class a little bit of an edge. And it's really for like just a couple of pacing issues that I have with Days of Future Past as opposed to First Class. And a couple of things I didn't really like. I don't know, but I love Days of Future Past. I love how ambitious it is. Like, yep. I love that they just straight up were like, all right, like we've done some X-Men movies before, but here's a straight up like really sci-fi time travel adventure, like that takes place in a post-apocalyptic future and the past, and like everything going on in each is nuts. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. And the whole like, oh, you know me, I love speedsters, man, and that freaking Quicksilver scene, like freaking I could watch that on repeat like probably all day. But
top 5 one of your top 5 moments. I remember. Check the last video too.
Right, but that scene is awesome too. Like,
it's amazing.
As far as that scene is freaking awesome. I watched a random YouTube video on it, and they're talking about how they broke Speed in that movie, like how like he shouldn't be able to do that, but no, it's really cool. But my follow-up question to you is like, have you seen the Road Cut?
I have not, and I was debating about buying it, but I saw that scene. I'm like, is it worth? I've been debating if
it's more than a scene.
Oh, really?
That they add. I mean, essentially, they kind of just dump all the deleted scenes back into the movie, but like it feels more robust, I guess I should say. But certain things are changed.
Because I remembered there was a lot of the Rogue. I'm like, oh, with you Rogue, but we didn't like. Oh, okay, so I did not see the Rogue cut. I'm gonna, I'm Frack. I'm gonna buy it later. I just buy.
Well, that would be my follow-up question. How do you feel about the Rogue cut versus would be? Personally, I feel like the OG is paced better,
and I think it's what they cut it though. But they were having pacing issues, and they're like, yeah, we got to go. But Sarah, thoughts?
I mean, I love that movie. It is so good, and I have weird fond memories of it because they had a panel at Comic-Con before the movie came out, and we managed to get second row seats in Hall H. So I got to see the entire, like they brought out the entire cast, like everyone was there, and it was just such a moment to see everyone together, like the younger versions and the older versions of all the characters all together on stage. And my memory of the panel is actually they played some exclusive footage, and the cast was like, we can't see it from up here, and so they came and stood in front of us in the audience. So suddenly Comic-Con security was like flipping out because they were scared that like us in the audience would like make a jump for these, you know, celebrities. So and to have that as the lead up for me to see this movie and then see what they actually made, it was just it was very fun. I liked, it was like what we want the characters to interact with each other, you know, like the both versions of the characters that we know. And I thought they did a pretty, it's hard when you're doing things across different times to get things right. And I really like it, though. I hate I love Quicksilver. I want to say it like no hate on Quicksilver, but I hate how like they get him wrong in the X-Men movies versus the, you know, the MCU movies. Like there's a scene I think where he's holding his little sister in his lap, and I'm like, that's not right. Like,
Well, we know why. Branson's not a comic book fan, and he doesn't care.
yeah. But see, that drives me nuts. It drives me nuts that they did it so wrong, and then the same character is in a different movie that we know is different because it's made by a different company. But then they make the characters more correct in the other. And anyway, so like, if I can ignore all that stuff, then then I'm fine.
I'll say this though, X-Men Quicksilver wouldn't have died from a bullet wound. You would have wrote that bullet.
Now listen, they never say that is Wanda in his lap.
They never said it, yeah.
They could be Polaris.
Oh,
who is significantly younger than Peter.
Quicksilver and Wanda, yeah. Oh, Sarah, in your face. In your face.
Whatever.
It could be Polaris.
It still bugs me. Without
her green hair. But it could be Laura Drain. I know my X-Men. X-Men forever.
But I had that same. The only reason I had that theory is because I had that same thought, like looking at that scene, like, what is that supposed to be Wanda? Like, why is she so young? Like, then my brain was just like, you know what? Let me help you out, X-Men. I'm just gonna go ahead and fill in this loophole for you here.
Yeah, because I was like, when that scene happened, I was like, oh, they messed up. They didn't read the comics. Like,
but that's
like,
something
this is so wrong. But they're trying to put like Easter egg in there for us. Like, look at his sister, and then I'm like, that's not right.
Right.
So that was.
That was your number 2, right?
Yeah, my number 2, yeah. So CJ, what is your number 1?
All right, my number 1, and before I say that number 1, let's just say there probably would have been a little more MCU movies in this list, but I wanted to flesh that out a little bit more, so I went for more diversity than anything else, kind of probably how Sarah did a little bit too, but because yeah, this probably would have been like 4 MCU movies and like and Logan maybe, I don't know. but so I just went with my absolute favorite MCU movie, which, as we already talked about a little bit, is Infinity War. It's my favorite Avengers movie. It's my favorite MCU movie. It's my favorite probably genre movie, because it does so much that is awesome, and while still being kind of a self-contained story, certainly it helps to be informed by the other movies, but it is something that you can understand and comprehend and even enjoy if you watch it by itself. But they take these characters, these beloved characters, and it has so many things to juggle that it shouldn't even work, but it does. Because they kind of center it around one central focus, which is Thanos, of course, and they make Thanos very compelling character to follow. And Josh Brolin part, but not only that, but it has some of my favorite like superhero like action moments in genre movies too. There's a lot. It's like a roller coaster of things happening in that movie, and it gets really dark towards the end, but like throughout the movie it's really like just a roller coaster of a movie to watch, and it's more epic than most things that I had seen before that movie came out, and it's still one of my favorite it has one of my favorite versions of my favorite comic book character, Spider-Man, to date, outside of Into the Spider-Verse. But this version and Tom Holland, I like more than I've liked even in his own movies. But yeah, that's me. I love Infinity War. It's my favorite.
I knew you were gonna do that. I knew it was gonna be your number one. I had a feeling. I'm like, I know my CJ. No, it is definitely like I said. I remember when we came out. I'm like, you know what? If they don't come with an end game, I'm fine with this. But I don't think it's coming, so I want the end game. You know what I mean? Like if that makes sense. Like, all right, the
Yeah,
book is
yeah.
closed. I would have been okay. He wins, but I knew it was coming. And like you said, yeah, they did. And the thing is that it's Thanos' story. It was always so in film school. Take a shot. We learned that you start a movie with your main protagonist and end it with the same protagonist. In a weird way, Thanos is a protagonist. He's not an antagonist. It's called Avengers, but they're really kind of the antagonist in the movie. If we're doing it through Thanos' point of view, um, and yeah, it's just the my favorite moments are the banter between Doctor Strange, Peter Parker, and Iron Man. We're in the ship with Squidward dude. What's his name? I don't know those people.
Ebony Maw.
Ebony. Yeah, that's just a weird name. Like that is the least comic book name I've ever heard. But it's an amazing movie for sure. Like, give that movie the Oscar. So
I mean, we kind of already touched on this. My favorite is still the original Avengers, and though I definitely love Infinity War. I don't really have much else to add besides what we've already said on that. So,
all right. So what is your number one, Sarah?
my number one is, of course, Guardians of the Galaxy. Absolutely love that movie. I could watch it anytime. Like, I probably have it kind of memorized by now. It's so good. I love Groot. I love Drax, and it's just so fun. I keep saying that, like, I picked fun movies, but I think that's why we watch them sometimes. It's
Right.
like I don't always like the good Academy Award winning movies. I tend to like the ones that are more fun and popular, and Guardians of the Galaxy it's just really fun. The characters are really it's easy to like them, even though they're kind of rogues, and it's a pretty movie too.
Yeah, no, I've only seen both those movies once in theaters. I haven't seen them since. They're not my favorite. I'm not a big fan of the cosmic side of comics. But it's funny. Yeah, definitely. The only time my trees made me cry.
We are Groot.
I'll say that about that movie. It's when we are Groot. I'm like, oh shit, he knows another word. But
He, I that's funny. I just watched that movie actually the other week actually. Guardians of the Galaxy. I do Volume 1. I do love that movie. Going into the first one, I had just recently became a fan of the comic book series, Guardians of the Galaxy, when I started hearing about the first movie. So I was already really interested because they were basing that on the run that I was reading. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, number one, I wonder how they'll do it. Number two, this will be cool. Like, you know what I mean? Because I'm into this and I'm sure, I'm sure they'll be cool. I heard that James Gunn was doing it, and I knew some of the things that he had worked on, and I was like, okay, this just might work together. Like you said, it's a pretty movie. It really is. Like, it's such a beautiful movie. Like, all the colors. I remember being choked, like not expecting to, but being choked up in the theater before like they even rolled the Marvel thing, because he's like, I mean, his mom's dying and he's in this, the scene, and he doesn't grab for it, and like then he runs out, and I'm just like, please don't make me cry like in the first 2 minutes of this movie. Please don't make me cry right now. I'm sitting here with my whole family. I don't want to look like this right now. But yeah, it's cool. I love Guardians of the Galaxy, the movie. I think it's awesome. There was something I was trying to say, but I completely forgot. I've completely blanked on it. But yes, the characters, how they all fit together and how they're all different. I think one of the illuminations that I got as I was watching it a couple of weeks ago, they harp on in the beginning. Rocket is explaining all these characters to you when they get arrested. He's like, oh, he tells you what Groot's deal is. Oh, Groot, yeah, whatever. He talks like this. He doesn't talk like us. And then Drax, you know what I mean? And he's like, oh yeah, he doesn't get stuff like this. His people are completely literal, you know what I mean? Like he's like trying to like giving the audience the rundown of these characters, you know what I mean? And it's hilarious how they use the Drax thing to great effect, I think. But one thing that he doesn't say, but is part of Gamora's character, which I love, and I see it throughout her journey through these movies, is like just as literal as Drax is, Gamora is earnest. Like her character is like, if Drax is completely literal, her character is completely earnest. Like everything she does is like she feels that way completely. Like there's no like half-assing about what she does or says, and I really like that about her character. And I feel like that's really shown in that scene when God, Peter Quill gives her the Walkman to listen to for the first time.
This thing there is.
Who put the sticks up their butts?
What? No, that's just
That is cruel.
just a phrase people use.
The melody is pleasant.
She's like, what? Why did you even like go back to get this thing? And he's like, here, like listen to this. And she's just like just her completely natural reaction. Oh, the melody is pleasant. Like, you know what I mean? Just like, oh yeah, that is cool. Okay, yeah. And then like how she's kind of like getting into it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like as she's just like, yeah, like she's not afraid to just be complete is, and she like sort of wears her heart on her sleeve in a way that's like kind of cool, and it doesn't make her naive either. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like she doesn't have to fear the repercussions of her thoughts. You know what I mean? Like it's like whatever. Like if you don't like me, I can kill you if you want to make something of it. But whatever. Otherwise, just deal with it. But now I've rambled too long about someone else's number one.
All right, my number one. It is. I want to confirm. It is. It's Logan. Like I'm an X-Men fan and I'm a Wolverine fan, and we've talked about it. And it's Wolverine, Logan doing everything he does. He done right. He's done. You pretty much talked about it when you talked about it, CJ. But it's like I said, I'm a comic book fan. I'm an X-Men fan, but first and foremost, I'm a Wolverine fan, and I'm like, they finally got him right. They his journey, his hesitance, like he's always like, I'm looking at it for me. Like I'm not gonna do it unless I really have to or need to. And X-23, and we've talked about the when we did the episode. I was never a fan of X-23 in the cartoons, in the comics, but that version of X-23, I'm like, all right, I'm won over, at least for that X-23. I still don't like that she's Wolverine in the comics. Pisses me off to no end. But it is and when he's dying from being stuck, and then Laura hold her hand, tears were streaming down my face. Like I couldn't stop crying because I'm like, no, like I'm no longer a child. What is this? And then the other moment that also broke my heart was, he's buried. They have the X, they have the cross right here. Well, Laura grabs it and turns it into an X. Like that again, I was just tearing down. I'm like, that means so much to me. Like, yeah, he lived the way he is. Like no, he doesn't deserve a Christian cross. He deserves the X-Men X. And that to me just like blew my freaking mind. Again, tears down my face.
One of the things I find interesting about Logan is how it opens, and how he, like, they kind of like show you like, here are the consequences of this man's like life, even though you hadn't really, if this was your first X movie, like this is your first time meeting them or whatever, but like he doesn't want to like fight those dudes, you know what I mean? Like he's just kind of like to though, and when he decides, it ends up bad for him.
Yeah,
as in, like, you know what I mean? Like he decided when he's like, all right, fine, you left me no choice. Now I have to defeat you guys. And then the dude, like, the shotgun goes off and it like busts his car. I mean, like, and now he has to deal with this real world problem of like fixing his car before he can even You know what I mean? Like, and it's just like, just because like he didn't want to do it, he didn't want to have to deal with this, and it's like, okay, fine, like I'll give in to my rage, like the guy of old, like the old Logan, and then like it still bites him in the ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which kind of sets up the tone for the movie, but I think that's an interesting moment.
It really, and then him getting old too. Sorry, so were you gonna say something, Sarah?
No, we already talked about it. I don't really have much more to add. It's just the movie's still too sad for me to fully love, but I mean, it's a fantastic movie.
And one of my favorite moments too is like he's dying, he's getting old, but one of the moments where when he has to physically pull out his claw because it can't come out because like he's just like that to me was amazing. I'm like, oh my god, he's so gone, he's so, and like you said too, like all he choices he makes, and it felt this was a true character piece. This was, I'm like, oh, this is a film. Also, this is an actual character piece with superpowers. But yeah, so that was my number one. All righty. Well then, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see you same fracking time, same fracking channel. Frack off.